Good afternoon, and welcome to the Word Ninja podcast. We are here on August 4th, 2013, for episode 6. The Word Ninja podcast is a 2-hour-long discussion of writing, reading, and general literary news of interest. I am your instigator of literary insanity, Charles Muir, and today we have one Edward Midnight and one William Granville, and just in time, one Calvin Williams. And Calvin is still muted because he has an echo.
I has an echo. I can take care of that. No lost echo.
Hooray. So, how is everyone this Sunday afternoon?
Alive.
Can't complain.
Yeah. Okay.
Hooray for living.
I was enjoying all the buzz all over Twitter and the internet about the naming of the 12th Doctor.
I was on another podcast, so I do not know who it is yet.
The 12th Doctor is Peter Capaldi.
I have no idea who that is.
Not a single fuck was given here.
It'll all depend on how the trade-off goes from Smith to the other guy.
They both show up. One hands the atomic, screwdriver to the other, and thus the torch has been passed.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I was reading a couple of articles about the possibilities of who the 12th Doctor could be. Peter Capaldi was among the shortlist, but there are a couple of people that I was actually that caught my interest in. I would have actually been excited to see if it were at all possible.
Like?
There's a gentleman named Chiwetel Ejiofor. You might, CJ, you might remember him from the Serenity movie. He was the main bad guy.
That would have been interesting.
Quite.
Oh, but he's not ginger.
That would have been interesting too. That would have been quite interesting had that actually played out.
Maybe he'll be the Doctor after the next one.
You never know. Anything is possible. There are a lot of mumblings about the possibility of a female Doctor. It was I imagine it was unlikely, but that would have been quite awesome.
Only if they portray it in the right way.
Yes.
I'm trying to get Doctor Who off my dashboard.
Good luck.
More variations to my blacklist.
Okay, with all of that, maybe we should roll into the literary news for the week. It's decided to go with some tips, an interesting article, and another interesting article. But the first one is, where is the title of it? Josh Whedon's Top 10 Writing Tips. Because everyone needs tips.
And Josh Whedon.
That too. This one is just a simple little list of 10 quick one-liners and then a paragraph description of why he believes they are true. And the link will be in our show notes and posted everywhere accordingly after the show. But I thought it a very interesting little list. Of course, the first one being finish it. Why should we finish our writing? That would be silly. And the second one being structure. A lot of writers should actually take that one to heart. Myself included sometimes. I don't always remember about structure, or formatting, or even grammar sometimes.
Really big, what's that?
Yes, these crazy things that other writers do.
I should consider doing that.
Yeah, right now, think about all the other crap later.
I think our button says right now, edit later, but same thing.
I thought think about all the other crap later sounded better.
It might be a bit much to fit on a button.
Maybe the 2-inch buttons.
Is that challenge accepted?
I hope not.
Make it fit.
That would require actually investing in the button press for the 2-inch ones. Which, it'll probably happen eventually anyway. And the third tip was have something to say. And the paragraph starts off with, this really should be number 1. And it is very true. If you're going to bother writing, do it with a purpose. Do people agree or disagree?
I'm still reading it to try and get what he's getting at.
Ah.
I got sidetracked, I'm sorry.
For those of you just listening to the awkward silence as we read, that little one says, even if you're writing a Die Hard ripoff, have something to say about Die Hard ripoffs. The number of movies that are not about what they purport to be about is staggering. It's rare, especially in genres, to find a movie with an idea and not just, this'll lead to many fine set pieces. The Island evolves into a car chase movie, and the moments of joy are when they have clone moments, and you say, what does it feel like to be those guys?
I think I'm going to agree with this one with him because, yeah. You go into like a movie theater or go to read a book and you think it's going to be about one thing and it turns out being about something completely different without any really good plot behind it.
Every fan fiction on the internet.
Well, I was thinking, this may just be me, but this whole thing of this will lead to many fine set pieces, all I can think of is Avatar. Let's just make some really pretty backgrounds with blue cat people in it. We'll make $1 million.
That Avatar. Thought you meant the Airbender for a second.
No, the Airbender would actually have a good story to it.
Unless M. Night Shyamalan gets his hands on it.
Oh.
That doesn't count.
Shyamalan needs to get his hands in nothing. He is one who has forgotten that point. Because when you look at his older stuff, he actually has good structure, and now it's all about creating some stupid plot twist.
The color red.
Yeah, and the color red. Well, The Sixth Sense was good.
Now I'm kind of curious if Shyamalan and Yui Bowl actually did a piece together. Would 2 wrongs make a right and actually create a decent movie?
Unfortunately, I don't know who that second one is.
I only know him from the atrociously done Blood Rain adaptation.
I didn't watch that one.
You're not missing anything. Calvin knows more of the movies.
Let's see, House of the Dead movies.
Never watched them.
Oh, they.
Yeah.
Never watched them.
House of the Dead was one of my favorite video games.
Again, you're not missing
Is
much.
he one of those ones that tries to make movies out of video games and fails horribly?
Yes.
He gives those he gives them a bad name.
Yes.
He didn't do the Resident Evil ones, did he?
I don't think so. I think that was a different failure.
No. Thankfully, no.
Very, very few movies based on video games are any good.
Oh, I enjoyed the Mortal Kombat.
The Mortal Kombat one was good.
The first one.
The first one.
Mm.
I liked the Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie. But then again, it really was just its own movie, because every Final Fantasy game is pretty much its own story anyway, so there's no way to... Well, I guess I can't say that because they made a Final Fantasy VII movie, didn't they?
Minor detail.
People will hate me for it, but that is an adaptation series that needs to go away. Enough with Final Fantasy VII already. Let's let it go.
See, Calvin, this is why I said at CanadaCon that 7 is the one that killed Final Fantasy.
It wasn't 7, it was all the adaptations based off 7 that killed the Final Fantasy series.
Well, they were talking about sequels, so that kind of fits.
I just
Honestly.
like the Final Fantasy movie because I have never played a Final Fantasy game, so I had no connection to that universe whatsoever. I just thought, ooh, shiny movie.
That's what I thought when I first saw it, too.
Which one? Spirits Within?
Yeah.
Like I said, it has no connection to any Final Fantasy game at all. Zero connection. Just the title, that's it.
Well, that's just silly.
That's the only way to do it. Because if you ever play any one Final Fantasy game, especially the older ones, they do not connect to each other. Completely different universe. And the few exceptions are Final Fantasy X to Final Fantasy X-2, and the Final Fantasy 13, there's 2 of those. Other than that, if you play Final Fantasy VII, then play Final Fantasy VIII, completely different game, completely different world, completely different rules.
Well, that's not confusing at all. Going back to the list after our... Oop. Oh, we lost Ed.
Yeah, my computer's being done. Give me a second.
Yep. In the meantime, going back to the list after our little derailment. Number 4. Everyone has a reason to live. Which is true. Every character within a story does have their own perspective and reasons for being in there. But I would think it's finding the balance of which ones do you focus on and actually bother caring about. I doubt a reader really needs to know the perspective and opinions of every single individual character in an entire story.
I can't help but develop them as I write, though.
Oh, as a writer, they're useful and sometimes even necessary just for the back end, but I don't think it all needs to be conveyed to a reader necessarily.
I don't think that's the point of the comment, though. I think he's saying the point is that the writer needs to have that so he can really make what that character says or does mean something, that when the reader or viewer gets to it, it's not just, like he says, it's not just a soundbite, it actually progresses the scene.
Good point. I didn't actually read the full paragraph all the way through. And number 5 sounds like trademark Josh Whedon of cut what you love. And I would extend that to cut who you love. How many of his characters have gone out in a fizzle of glory?
Sigh.
Is there a series or movie that he has been a part of where there has not been a surprise death of a random character? Because I can't think of one.
It always makes me sad when Steve the Pirate dies in Serenity.
At least he died a leaf on the wind.
He died in a ship crash.
No, he survived the ship crash. He got impaled shortly after the ship crashed.
He got Serenity'd. Went out the same way as Trinity.
Oh.
People need to stop crashing their airships into piles of rebar.
Well, to be fair, Wash got impaled by a harpoon. I guess the Reavers just wanted to add insult to injury. Or injury to insult.
Or just injury.
Yeah.
I think they just really like killing people.
And scrolling down to number 6. Listen. That one can be tricky, depending on who you need to listen to. Of course, I'm stuck with my mind going to the stupid improv of John Barrowman doing skits with various people of just doing the one line, listen. And then they need to repeat it back to him as many times as he feels like. And then he just eventually decides to kiss the random people without warning. Because he's John Barrowman.
This one is an interesting one.
Interesting and kind of tricky at the same time.
Mm.
The stickout sentence for me in this paragraph is it's very important to know when to stick to your guns, but it's also very important to listen to absolutely everybody. Really? Absolutely everybody?
Everybody has a lot of opinions.
Well, you don't have to take their opinions. You just have to listen to their opinions, apparently.
There's no harm in listening.
You never know when one stupid opinion might actually spark a good idea.
Yeah, true. I've lost count of how many offhand comments me and Calvin have had between each other that spark ideas.
Half of a webcomic. This would be a great idea for an entire story arc based off of one sentence.
How many of my interesting things have ended up on your list?
Yes.
Plenty.
The whole thing about you walking on my feet
Oh,
as a tiny screw.
the tiny screw.
I don't want to know.
I found a very small screw and it just led into a whole lot of sexual innuendo. My favorite line was, everyone needs a little screw every now and again.
So when he holds it out to me and says, want a tiny screw? I didn't say go into them! Or
How about number 7? Track the audience mood. I would think that one is trickier to do than most. Because you're not necessarily going to be in front of the audience before the piece is done.
Mm.
I think this one's more of just have a general idea of who you're talking to. Yeah, who do you want it to appeal to? That's kind of easier.
If that's the case, then it needs to be something a little more defined rather than just, I want it to appeal to everyone.
That's impossible.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Appealing to every...
This whole list is more for movie script writing, which is still important.
Yeah.
But they do get like the test screenings where they can have it viewed and then try to determine if anything needs adjusting.
I wonder how that worked with The Hobbit, because for some reason that went in the opposite direction, giving us an extra movie.
I still need to sit down there and watch it. Not that I don't know what happens, because I've read it several times already.
Surprise, everyone dies.
Oh.
The dragon eats everyone.
Dragons tend to do that.
I kind of like number 8 sometimes, to write like a movie. Sometimes it can be useful to go into the details of just what you're picturing in your own head for a scene. As long as you don't go overboard, though.
Mm.
And of course, number 9 is don't listen. Because after having given the advice about listening, he has to give the opposite of advice. Because ultimately, the best work comes when somebody has fucked the system, done the unexpected, and let their own personal voice into the machine that is movie making, or in our general case, just writing. Oh, and it only took us 24 minutes to break the PG-13 rating. Oops.
Womp womp. Oh well.
It's a mature labeling on iTunes regardless, so. Or at least it will be once I get it on there.
Whee!
I have finished editing the first episode's audio and queued up all the various musical bits and pieces. I just need Calvin to work his techie magic to make it work.
Just let me know what needs to be done.
Yeah, we can figure that out offline. And of course, number 10, which is very important, although hard sometimes, don't sell out. As in, don't do it just for the money or for other people. Do it for yourself. Of course, another version of it could be is sell out in the concept of sell all the copies and become rich and famous.
I think that's the kind of sellout that most people are trying to strive for.
Yeah, but there's no rhyme or reason as to who will be that type of a sellout. The common public are very finicky and fickle and random when it comes to what they latch on to as popular.
It's all about marketing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll go for that, since it's my job and all. Yes, keep me employed. But yes, that is the top 10 tips from Joss Whedon. And if you agree or disagree or want to expand on any of these points, having listened to us banter about them, leave a YouTube comment or email us directly at wordninja@fcwriters.com. Continue our conversations, so we're not just talking to the void.
Oh, talking to the void is fun sometimes.
True. It's only disconcerting when the void actually talks back, though.
Hmm. Here we go.
Okay, with one down, let's go to number 2, with the interestingly named title of Learning to Drop the Donkey.
Yeah, I saw those and I'm like, what?
Not to
How
be
many people's
confused-
mind go to innuendos?
Not to be confused with jumping the shark.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was an innuendo for something else as well. The full title for this one is Learning to Drop the Donkey. Is perfectionism killing your career?
Yes.
Always.
Damn perfectionism.
This one caught my eye just because I know a lot of us, myself included, are always trying to make our writing as best as possible. And sometimes we can get a little stuck and mired in the fiddly little details.
Yeah, perfectionism causes ultimately causes a Mobius strip of negativity and feelings of screw it all in terms of my creativity.
For me, it just leads to never getting anything done.
Yes.
Yeah, I usually do a couple attempts, maybe a bit of fiddling here and there, and then I just say, screw it! It's done. It's good enough. Get it out there. For better or worse. But the basis of this article is based on one of Aesop's fables called Old Man Wicket's Donkey. Or, no, that was someone else's version. The Man, the Boy, and the Donkey. That sounds like the start of a very bad joke.
A man, a boy, and a donkey walk into a bar.
But it's basically all about trying to please everyone and anyone along the way, even if you fall apart in the process. And generally trying to advise you not to do that. Or as they sum it up in the TLDR version, try to please everyone and we please no one. And I don't want to please no one. No one is a jerk.
Unfortunately, my version of perfection, I'm not trying to please everyone. I'm just trying to please myself.
Well, that's equally difficult sometimes.
Yeah, same here. Every
We
time
can-
I write another chapter, I go, this is horrible. And then I release it, and everyone's like, this is amazing. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, we can be our own worst enemies sometimes.
I remember a short story that I wrote in college. Like I spent a good portion of my night working on it. I looked at it and I was like, good enough. It felt like one giant stream of consciousness. I didn't really know how to like edit it or fix it up or anything like that, and I just handed it to my professor. It was like, whatever. Next class, I see him reading this story in front of everybody. And everybody thought he was amazing. I'm like, really? I thought it sucked. So, I don't know what the moral I was going for there was, but
Just because you think it sucks doesn't mean it does.
Yes.
close enough.
I've lost count of how many times I've worked on various novel bits or scenes and thinking, it's not the best version, but it'll do. And then I send it out for beta reading and like, this is awesome. You should write more of this. Or just finish the damn story already. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, this is like my third draft. It could be so much better, I'm sure. Going back to the article, near the end it has a little section of learning to drop the donkey. In this new paradigm, all of us need to learn to be leaders, and leaders own everything, the good and the bad. And that is no easy task. And she has to admit that there are times her neck starts hurting and gets lower back pains and then realize, I'm carrying the freaking donkey. Drop the donkey, you idiot.
Donkey can walk on its own four hooves.
Yes. Donkeys are perfectly capable of handling themselves. As should we be. And nuts to all the other peoples that say otherwise. I can only imagine the arguments PETA would have about that.
Even Peter would be like, carry your own donkey.
Peter would be like, you have to make a wonderful cart for the donkey. It must be the most comfortable cart in all the land for your donkey to rest on while you pull it around. With cup holders. For the donkey. Not for you.
Who pulls or pushes the cart?
You do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You don't necessarily have to carry the donkey. You just gotta push it around.
What if we devise a clever harness? Or a set of pulleys?
What
Or
is
maybe-
Peter's
Hmm?
what is Peter's stance on pulleys?
I don't know.
As long as it doesn't harm the donkey, I suppose.
Who knows with PETA?
Then you have to marry the donkey.
I'm sure all the other organizations would love that. If you want to learn out what happens for that, then donate and we'll create our After Hours podcast and talk about it. Actually, no, please don't donate enough for us to actually start doing that.
Well, we'll donate enough for us to start doing that, but we're not going to actually do that. We're going to use that money for something else.
I'd theoretically be up for an after-hours podcast, but it would require a decent amount of donations to get it running and a lot of planning.
And part of that money would have to go towards booze to
Yes.
fuel the After Hours podcast.
Oh, yes.
Yepers.
Imagine all four of us in a round table with bottles of our favorite poison. One of them would have to be Crystal Head Vodka, and the And the crystal head would have to sit in the middle of the table. It would be our mascot.
I don't know, for a podcast like that, I think I'd have to invest in some Bowmore.
Don't have any right now. We finished it.
We did.
Actually, I think Calvin, it was you.
Yep.
Yeah, you're probably right.
All I have right now is the bookers for that kind of stuff.
We cook with it.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I am like basically out of everything here. And it makes me sad.
Oh.
Same here, actually. I haven't stocked up lately.
I won't be able to stock up until at least 2 weeks from now.
No time or payday?
No. Payday. My money went very quickly this pay period.
Same here.
Sigh.
Yeah, I think my recent Facebook post from last week or so is going to be recurring for a while. I'm on this new diet. It's called I Only Have $10 Till Friday.
Me, I'm on the... I have no idea how much money is on my dresser, but it's going to have to do for the next 12 days.
Oh my.
Budget. Unless I can do an odd job or two for somebody. That will garner me enough money to last me a couple more days.
I can't say anything for short-term jobs, but I know someone in need of web design services. So maybe offline I can talk to you about that.
Okay. But I'm thinking more along the lines of, does somebody need like virus removal or like computer cleanings up or something like that? Something that can get me money within like 2 hours.
Can't help you there.
Rats.
Can't help you with those either.
Oh well.
At this point, we might as well roll into news piece number 3. What was news piece number 3? Oh yeah. How 8 famous writers chose their pen names. This one was fun to read. Mainly because some of these people I didn't think were actually using pen names. Number 1 is Lewis Carroll, otherwise known as Charles Ludwig Dodgson. I can kind of see why you go with Lewis Carroll. It's a little less of a mouthful. But apparently that name came about by Latinizing Charles Ludwig into Carolus Ludovicus, or...
Ludovicus.
Sure, why not? And then loosely anglicizing that into Carol Lewis and then swapping it. That seems unnecessarily complicated just to come up with a name.
Right?
And of course Joseph Conrad. That was one that I thought it was his actual name. And I don't want to try and pronounce this one.
Joseph Theodore Conrad Korzeniowski.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Close enough.
Yeah, I'm not good with Polish names. Or basically any European names that are not anglicized. His reasoning was, it is widely known that I am a Pole, and that Joseph Conrad are my two Christian names, the latter being used by me, there's a typo, as a surname so that foreign mouths should not distort my real surname. Oh, that was thoughtful of him.
What's so hard about saying Korzeniowski?
Try saying that 10 times fast.
Why would I need to?
You win this round. You want to take your chances with Pablo Neruda?
Ricardo Elcier Neftali Reyes Basalto.
Basso Alto.
Why
Close
do
enough.
people need 5 names?
It's a common European thing.
Isn't it a Catholic thing or something like that?
I had a friend in high school that had 2 middle names. She had like 4 names.
I have enough trouble remembering people's just first names and last names, never mind 5.5 middle names.
Amen.
Never mind pronouncing them all. I still have people who have trouble pronouncing Muir, or Muir, or Mwire. Number 4, Stan Lee. I didn't actually know his full name was Stanley Martin Lieber until, I think, last year. But at least that little pen name is kind of easy to figure out how it came about. Out of curiosity, did anyone know that Ann Landers was a pseudonym for several writers? Not just one?
I did.
I did actually.
Well, I did not.
Neither did I.
Dear Abby is kind of like that too.
Hmm.
I think these days it is.
Wasn't Dear Abby and Ann Landers like sisters at one point?
I think so. And like you said, Ann Landers, they take care. A lot of people took over.
Right.
Because I think the same thing happened with Dear Abby. You get old. That's been around for, God, ever.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
How about number 6 with Voltaire, or Francois-Marie Arouet, or something?
That's
Good
French.
enough.
French is tricky. That
Yeah.
could just as easily be our way.
Silly French people and your spellings. Never mind that English has even sillier spellings for everything.
But this isn't about English right now.
And I never would have thought that George Orwell was not his real name. It is in fact Eric Arthur Blair. because those two sound so much alike. Apparently that one came about because George is the patron saint of England, and the River Orwell, a popular sailing spot, was a place he loved to visit. Well, at least his pen name had interesting reasoning behind it. And of course the last one is J.K. Rowling. That one's kind of a stretch as a pen name, considering it is her actual first initial and middle initial.
Well, middle
It's
initial.
not her middle initial.
It isn't?
No,
No,
it
it's
says
not.
in there she doesn't have a middle name. It's
Oh.
it's her grandmother's name.
That's what I get for not reading the last sentence of the paragraph. Well, it's close enough to her regular name. I still think it's kind of silly that they initialized that so that boys would not necessarily think that it was a woman writing those stories.
You'll be surprised at the difference perception makes.
I don't know, maybe I'm just biased because I didn't care who wrote what. As long as it entertained me, I read it.
There's people that'll make a fuss about anything.
Mm,
True. I'm sure if people listen or watch to this podcast, there will be all sorts of disgruntled mumblings and whatnot about some of the things we say.
I can't imagine how many French people we've insulted just by our talk about Voltaire's name.
Well, we can always make it worse. Voltaire was a jerk. Take that.
Wow.
And with that, that rounds out our literary news for the week, which would bring us to the talking points. Talking point number 1. What is your opinion of using dialects and slang in writing? And how about when reading it?
I will only use dialects and slang if I am good at them. So far, I've used none in my writing.
I use it all the time. Just because a lot of times I'm writing for someone then that actually would use that stuff. You know, I think putting it in if it fits the character, but using slang if the character wouldn't do that, yeah, no. Now you've got this British character that has perfect grammar and everything else. You're not going to insert British slang unless she's mocking someone or exceptions.
Or drunk.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. Reading it can be interesting, though.
Reading it is a different story. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I
the
usually-
book I was reading this week had the main character spoke in dialect pretty much the entire time. And it made me think of, for any of you who watched Yu Yu Hakusho in the dubbed version, Jin, the wind fighter, who spoke kind of with an Irish accent and whatnot. That was basically in my head the entire time I was reading that book, because it was the exact same dialect.
I find it's interesting to use slang and dialect. I don't have to use it too much. I think you gotta avoid overuse. but it's okay to use it.
As with all things, in moderation.
Yeah. Like the work I'm working on takes place in the New England area, so I do use a little bit of New England slang. I'm not too close to Boston, thankfully, so I don't have to worry about that particular accent.
Oh,
I don't even.
the Yardy accent.
Help me with that.
It's okay. It's okay. But like for any of you who have read, I've gotten 1 or 2 notes on this. One of my characters has thrown around the adjective wicked more than once.
I have noticed that.
You just have to not overuse it. You can't use it like every time. That would start to get like hitting someone over the head with it. But peppering conversation is fine. It's like swearing.
But what if they're wicked people?
Then they would be wicked now, wouldn't they?
As for reading it, I read a lot of like R.A. Salvatore's work in the Forgotten Realms, and there's quite often dwarves involved. Yeah, that's quite an interesting dialect they have there. If anyone's ever read a dwarf before, dialogue for a dwarf.
Just a bit.
One of my favorite expressions, my favorite dwarven expression is, "Killed him dead." Yep, killed him dead.
Well, I don't know. Depending on the story, maybe they just kill them slightly, and then the person gets better. Killing them dead is nice and final and sure.
With those stories, it does tend to happen every now and then that people who die don't necessarily stay dead.
Yeah, they have a problem staying dead in that universe.
Hmm.
Or at least it takes a lot to keep them dead.
I think for me, whenever I think of like dialects and slang and things like that, I think of like people from south of the Mason-Dixon line that speak a completely different way, and it sounds a lot of times not like English. However, most of my family is from south of the Mason-Dixon line, and so I can understand them clearly. Unlike most of my friends who are either born further north or from the Caribbean. So, like reading books with that have characters with southern accents, like I can read all the broken English without any issues, but everybody else will be like, what the fuck are they saying? So I would literally have to translate everything they're saying for them. That was always kind of fun.
I don't know why, but for some reason my brain made a connection between Slang 101 and Crunk 101.
That's a completely different, unrelated thing that we don't necessarily need to get into right now.
Nope.
That is for the After Hours podcast. My brain is in a weird place today, apparently.
Nothing wrong with this.
It's wicked awesome.
I have a good one for you then, from work, no less. That's Totes Amazeballs.
Nice! Sounds like something out of Adventure Time.
It does.
Yeah, it kind of does.
It does.
Talk.
Mathematical. There was one thing I was working on, speaking of like dialects and whatnot. One thing I wanted to do was one of my characters is actually a writer and a teacher. And at first I was thinking of trying to have him be very careful about using slang, trying to avoid it. Don't know how well I've maintained that.
Yeah, it's surprising what can slip into their conversations when you're not careful.
Especially when emotions get riled, like they're drunk or they're angry or whatnot.
Well, at least then you have the excuse.
With alcohol, everything goes out the window automatically.
With alcohol, Aiden's pants go out the window.
Yeah, he didn't need them anyway.
He's not the one that usually took them off.
Hey, whatever works. Pants go flying whether it's his fault or not.
Usually it's not his fault. Poor guy gets a little drunk and is just like, oh, whatever.
Oh, alcohol. The cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
And how?
With that, how about talking point number 2? If you could enter the world of any story, which would it be? And would you just be like an NPC in the background or one of the main characters?
I'm not answering.
Can I enter my own story?
Yes. Although we would add the question of what species would you be?
That's easy to answer.
Well, with your universe, that little addendum is kind of necessary.
Other side. Icon right there. Yeah, that's me. I displayed the full picture, but that, that has to be in the After Dark one.
Fair enough. For me, it's usually been the universe by David Eddings of the Belgorod and Malorian quintologies. It's one of the basic sword and sorcery universes, but I think I'd rather just be one of the background characters rather than one of the main peoples, because those wizards have to do way too much. I mean, the destiny of all creation weighs upon their shoulders. You do not want me with that responsibility.
I suppose I could deal with being in the Forgotten Realms versus depicted by R.A. Salvatore, but I wouldn't want to be a main character because those guys risk their lives against terrible villains on a regular basis. I like living.
Yeah, but they don't die.
Oh no, they die plenty.
Well, okay, they don't stay dead.
Oh no, quite a few of them do stay dead. I don't want to take that
so
risk.
far.
There are plenty that are dead in quite a variety of ways. I don't want to risk being one of those. There are plenty that have died and come back. There's the guy that died, but then demons brought him back, and then there was the... Let's see, there's always coming back as like an undead or a vampire. I'd rather just do the living part.
Fair enough.
I'm trying to think what realm I'd like to enter. It would definitely be something steampunk, maybe Infernal Devices, the Infernal Devices realm. Maybe a fly on the wall for all that goes down, or maybe be one of the failed automatons that's built in that realm.
How about my steampunk tea shop universe?
Yeah, I would. You would definitely see a lot of me in that tea shop.
That, now my brain goes to the after hours version of the podcast, considering that the tea shop is just a front for a burlesque house.
Exactly.
Okay, on that note, maybe we should go to talking point number 3. What is the most complex or complicated character you've created or worked with?
All of them.
I respond to my little blonde-headed, pardon my French, fuckface.
Suppose I do have a little shit that likes to give me trouble too, more so than any of the others.
I think the female villain for my zombie apocalypse universe goes for the most complex, as she is effectively immortal. And she just resets her internal clock by killing a whole lot of peoples.
Mass sacrifice.
Yeah, basically. Mass genocide, and then all of a sudden this 70-year-old woman turns into a 12-year-old. And it can take a while for her memories to return. So the big bad evil kills a whole lot of people, and then you're just stuck with a teenager.
Which is even scarier.
Yeah, especially as she still has some powers.
Trying to think.
I think the most complex one turned out to actually be probably Maxie from Roommate. It's not how she originally intended to be, but she developed so much that now it's like, wow, you have a really complex personality with a lot of shit going on.
Hooray, character development.
Pretty much.
I've actually delved into a little bit of character development over the past week. Excuse me. If you guys remember last week, I unearthed my my story from back in 2006. I decided to give it a few reads over, and I noticed that in just 15 pages, I developed quite an interesting character with like little idiosyncrasy. Excuse me. Idiosyncrasies, weird quirks, insecurities. Interestingly enough, a lot of which parallel my own, which is always fun. And I've been here and there trying to see if I can build upon him, because 15 pages really isn't a whole lot to like make such a complex person. And so it's kind of interesting just looking back at what I did, especially because I'd completely forgotten about it.
Yeah, sometimes having a few years or so away from a story can be what it takes to get re-inspired.
I think the time away has definitely helped. Like seeing as 2013 me and 2006 me are, I can't really say two completely different people, but like, Um, just a bit different.
Well, I can easily say that for myself.
Or sophisticated.
I guess. That's a lot has changed. Many lessons learned.
Some the hard way.
Yeah. So I definitely feel like I can go back to the story, and I don't want to make him terribly complex, but with all the idea bubbles and plot points I'm tinkering around with, it's going to get pretty complicated really quickly.
It always does.
Yeah, it does have a way of happening, whether you want it to or not.
Especially retooling the bad guys that are out to get him. I mean, they were scary enough as is from that short story, but I have some plans.
That's how I feel with the steampunk tea shop plot. The original villain was just a pretentious prick after a bit of power. Now I have the marionette.
I wrote my story back when I had only slight knowledge of how networks and wireless networks run. And now that I'm an IT guy, all the knowledge that I've amassed, and looking at the story and thinking about how my character went crazy, it's really, really not feasible, especially because he's a hacker. The way he ended up going crazy would never happen if he were a true hacker. Because there are a lot of new mistakes in that story.
Well, sometimes live and learn.
Yeah. Like all good stories, they have to start somewhere.
Yep. I think with that, we will move on into a commercial interlude, because we're trying to find ways to make this podcast and full coverage writers at least financially stable, if not profitable.
Now a word from our unofficial sponsors.
Yeah, pretty much. The recommended reading posts that we have every Tuesday, I am now linking to the books that we talk about via Amazon Associates or Amazon affiliate links. So if you are interested in any of the books that we talk about and you use the links in the post, then a phone will ring. And if you use the links then and purchase the books, then we get a small little commission off of it, which helps to go towards the hosting fees and just all the back-end stuff to help keep everything running. And we're looking into doing some various other affiliate options that are allowed in Connecticut, where we're based, because my preferred ones no longer allow affiliates to do anything in Connecticut because of sales tax complications.
Eep.
Yeah. So I really wanted to do audible.com and ThinkGeek, but they're currently not doing anything with Connecticut.
Oh,
Yeesh.
Yeah.
It's been awesome too.
And Amazon affiliates didn't do Connecticut for a while. I think that changed this year. So if the situation ever changes, then I will jump on ThinkGeek, because there's all sorts of shiny baubles on there worth buying.
Including books.
Yes.
Very fun books.
And we're also in the process of creating worksheet packets. While we are posting a new worksheet for free every Thursday on our website, I'm hoping on compiling a 10 to 15 page packet on various topics and then selling the PDF versions of that on our website in the near future. We're still finagling the little fiddly back-end details to make sure that that works the way it needs to.
Yes.
But basically, we're trying to find useful ways that you can help support us so we can continue providing content and entertainment to you. And with that, onward to the What Have You Been Reading segment. Hoping that people have been reading this week.
Kinda.
So, what have people been reading? Silence.
I'm still working my way through rereading the early parts of Jack Frost I mentioned last time.
How is it so far?
As violent and bloody as I remember it being. You like blood, violence, mystery, intrigue, and a little bit of fan service? It's the story for you.
Yeah, I'm still trying to finagle some time to read Warcraft because I really, really want to read it, but I really don't seem to have the time for it. I just barely managed to make time to reread my own story.
And when you do find the time to read, I send you emails about things I need you to do.
You're not the only one. You're like one of 4 people.
I'm not one of them.
Either.
Sometimes I feel like Navi, just popping up every once in a while. Hey, Calvin, listen, I need you to do this.
I had another idea.
Oh, hey, Warcraft. Oh, hey, an email.
I make a point to time it perfectly so that when you do have a free moment, ding, you have email. Of course, to be fair, people have been doing that to me all week as well, in retaliation. Okay, I need to put the show notes together for the next episode. Oh, hey, an email from a person I should be staying in touch with. Nuts.
Such is life.
Yes. Last week I talked about reading, I think it was The Innocent Mage by Karen Miller. Well, I finished that and went to the sequel of the duology, The Awakened Mage. This one had a much better first sentence. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go listen to last week's podcast. But the first sentence of this book is, with one calloused hand shading his eyes, Asher stood on the tower's sandstone steps and watched the touring carriage with its royal cargo and Master Magician Durm bowl down the driveway, sweep around the bend in the road, and disappear from sight. And if that's not enough, the back cover teaser is "The evil foretold has risen, and we are all that stands between it and the end. Asher has come a long way from a fisherman's son. Together with his friend Prince Gar, he has defended their kingdom against its bitterest enemy, but at great cost. Now the evil mage Morg is preparing for his most deadly assault, and this victory would be particularly sweet, for who better to destroy the kingdom than the two who would give anything to save it?" And as far as duologies go, it was actually very entertaining. even with the extensive use of dialect. Although he did, or she did, pull a Whedon at the end with the surprise tearing apart of a character. Limb from limb, no less.
Awesome.
Kill a character, do it memorably.
Well, when it is the end of the world, it's unlikely that everyone's going to magically survive.
Point taking.
And I've also been rereading the Spice and Wolf manga, now that I finally got the latest chapters or volumes in the mail.
I need to do that too.
Yeah, I think there are 8 volumes of the manga out at the moment, or what is it?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, there are 8 volumes, and I've reread the first 6 so far.
That's about all I have is about 5 or 6. I need to get catched up.
And I think number 9 comes out later this year.
Of course, I still have to catch up on, like, everything.
Yeah, I had reader problems this week. As I finished The Awakened Mage, I thought, well, I have a pack of about 75 books I could read, but then there's about 100 books on my shelf I want to reread. How do I choose? Well, Mango won out, at least for this week. Let's see here. With that, what have you been writing for the week?
My roommate's a stripper, chapter 16.
I've been working on chapter 1 of Lit Jutsu. I'm hoping to do 1 chapter a week, and so far I'm not horribly behind on that schedule.
Count myself lucky if I do 1 chapter a month.
Well, I'm hoping to finish at least a solid rough draft before Nano.
Not bad.
Especially considering that there's at least 1 workshop happening before Nano that I need to outline and figure out the logistics for.
Let's see. Besides all the mountains of code that I write on any given week, like I said earlier, I did start with character development on for my short story, in the hopes to actually expand it into something longer than 15 pages. There's a lot that I can do with this story, and I'm really looking forward to doing it once I have a bit more time. Oh, hey, an email. Yeah. I didn't realize I had written some character dynamic in that story between the main character and his bassist, and I really got to figure out what to do with that.
I guess it's also worth mentioning that I edited a previous recommended reading post for this week on the Ren Trilogy Quadrology series from Sherwood Smith that's up on our website now. There's 3 books in print, and the 4th one is ebook only. So that confuses me. But that counts as writing too, dang it. But yeah, go check it out on our website.
And also check it out on my screen really quickly.
Come on. There we go. That is the preview of the recommended reading for the week. I have 3 more queued up for the month that I need to finish tweaking and put on the website. And with that, unless anyone else has written other things of note for the week, we can roll on to upcoming events.
Eee.
For upcoming events, there is a regional writing event for Fairfield County Writers Group, based conveniently in Fairfield County, Connecticut. They are meeting on August 10th from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Darien Library in Darien, Connecticut. Attendance is free and open to all.
One of these days.
One of these days. And details will be in the show notes and on our Facebook page. And of course, we are having a Surviving the Novel Writing Process workshop on October 26th. I'm still pinning down details as to where that is going to be. I'm hoping to get that at a library, but I haven't really confirmed which one is available for that time. And I'm still figuring out who our speakers are going to be for that. But once I have more details, we'll put it up on our website accordingly. And while not really an event that we're working at, I will be attending Connecticut Comic-Con this month, which is at some point. I can't remember which weekend it is. August 24th. It's at the Marriott Hotel in Trumbull, Connecticut. And a fair amount of people who were at Connecticon are also vendoring there. So I figured I'd stop by and say hello. And kind of scope it out for next year as a possibility.
Cool.
I haven't really heard much about that one.
Yeah, I never heard of it before.
Neither had I until I stopped by my local comic shop and he mentioned it to me. But,
I know they have a Facebook, because
Yeah.
Somebody was posting it up on the Connecticon page.
But I know C.J. Henderson is going to be there selling his
Nice.
70 books, so I thought I'd say hello. And our booth neighbors, Itty Bitty Sheep, I think is attending as well, from what I've heard.
Aw,
Yes.
say hi to her.
So yeah, if anyone else happens to be attending Connecticut Comic-Con and you happen to see me or anyone else able to attend, say hello. And that is all the upcoming events that I'm aware of. Time for writing prompts. The writing prompts for this week have been posted on fcwriters.com under the Muse Food section. And there will be a link in our show notes, of course. And one of these weeks, someone will send us a 1,000-word flash fiction piece that we can read on the podcast. But no one has taken the bait yet.
Come on, you know you want.
People. Sorry. What have you been reading, CJ?
Stuff.
Liars.
I am not going to drink out of a bottle that's vibrating in your hand.
I don't know where that one came from. I forget what I was listening to or reading at the time. I am kind of curious how many viewers will understand the reference of chopping grass is not a valid life skill. Even if you do it with a sword.
I'm locked on. My house keeps combusting.
You smell like old people.
Oh, I don't even want to know where the Unleash the Weasels came from.
I don't either.
These are your one-liners.
Sounds like the start of Weasel Stomping Day.
CJ, you should end this edited podcast with the Weasel Stomping Day theme.
Oh god.
Because everybody needs a little Weird Al in their day.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm kind of curious if anyone can come up with a story using the one-worders section for the week. I mean, what kind of story would have koala, tobacco, shift, muffin, croissant, penalty, warrant, immobile, save, and action all in one piece? And please make it appropriate for this podcast and not the After Hours podcast. Unless you donate enough money that we can say it on the After Hours podcast.
If you would like to be a backer.
Maybe then I'll actually get a chance to read a snippet of Roommate. Because I looked at the start of chapter 16. I can't read that on this one. I can't even read the start of chapter 1 here.
That is also true.
You know what? Just for shits and giggles, what would the donation price have to be for us to do an After Hours episode?
$69. Sorry, not sorry.
I say the stipulation would be give us donate enough money to for us to buy X amount of liquors, and then we consider it. Like say a bottle of Bowmore, a bottle of Crystal Head vodka. What poison would you guys be interested in? And maybe a decent bottle of gin too.
I'd have the gin.
Did you just like squeak?
Sometimes.
That's how excited he is.
Oh, gin!
Why?
So see.
I'm all over here, I promise.
Maybe we could have more of like a fundraiser goal of every $69 that are donated, not necessarily in one time. Once we hit that mark, we'll do an After Hours episode.
That seems fair.
That way you can donate whatever you're comfortable donating, and once we hit that mark at any given time, we'll do an episode.
I provide plenty of alcohol.
Buy a couple bottles with that.
I think we would have to all get together in one room to do that.
Yes.
And Edward and William, since you both have a very nice house that we've been to before, I say you guys would be the ideal venue.
We got plenty of room.
You guys need to come visit anyway.
That is true.
Yeah, it has been a little while.
Longer for you, CJ.
Shush.
Bang, bang!
Oh man, I can't even use the excuse of distance because Calvin lives farther away than I do. And I have a car.
You have no excuse.
Get your fedora down here now.
You're north of me. It would be get up there, not down there.
We're not north of you.
Get your fedora over here now.
You're east of here then.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, we should have dropped in on him when we had to go to Long Island. I actually drove around. Ever again? Ever?
I'm sure Calvin could figure out the logistics of setting up a donation option on our website for such things.
Yeah, I can figure that one out.
Just sounds so matter of fact about it.
Did you get
there's something else.
get the email thing working?
Which
Oh,
email
the-
thing?
Oh, the mail server? I got that working. I
Hooray!
did get that working. And CJ, there was actually somebody that used the submission form and got in contact with us. Did you receive that email?
No. I mean, yes. When was this?
This was back in time.
Let's see, how embarrassed should I be?
Oh, this was 2 days ago, so.
That's not terrible. What email does that go to?
It should go to administration.
I'm sure I got it and probably just overlooked it.
It wasn't terribly important. It's some random person soliciting business that I'm not interested in.
Aw.
Like after hours type business, or
No, not that type of business. No.
Maybe that type of business.
It was basically, your website is good, but it also sucks, and we can help you make it better.
Meh.
Our website is awesome. Screw you.
I'm kind of curious about the post on our FairfieldCountyWritersGroup.com page that is entirely in Russian.
Yes. Yeah, they're
Considering the links, I'm sure it's spam, but I'm intrigued nonetheless.
it's a really significantly lengthy post, completely in Cyrillic.
Oh, Google Translate.
I'm well familiar with that.
Well, with that, unless we have any other talking points anyone would like to cover, I guess we can start wrapping things up with attributions and where people can find all of us.
That sounds fair. Who first? CJ, you choose.
Eeny, meeny, miny, will.
Ah. Yeah. Apparently, Hangout Toolbox didn't actually save my preset with all the stuff in it like it told it to. But you can find me, as usual, on Tumblr It is darkholm.tumblr.com. That is very much not safe for work.
And definitely for after hours.
Definitely for after hours. I also have a blog set up specifically for my novel in progress. It is all one word, my roommate's a stripper.tumblr.com. I am also on Twitter at Darkholm. I believe that's what it is. Is that what it is?
No, you're Will Granville.
Oh, I'm still at Will Granville. I can't remember. That's right. I changed the display name. But yeah, it's at Will Granville. And then I have my sofurry.com account under the handle Darkholm. Find my roommate's a stripper, as well as a few other little odds and ends. Must be 18 or older.
Everything of yours is 18.
Not everything, just like 95%.
Maybe some of it is 17 and a half or older.
Chapter 12 does not have an 18 and older limit. It's just very, very sad.
Oh.
Calvin knows it well.
All of the feels.
That's one about Maxie, yes?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Alright, with that, onward to Edward.
I am not as spread out as Will is.
Giggity.
Yikes! Headphones stay on head. For me, most of my stuff is at the Full Metal Edward Elric.tumblr.com. Like I said, I'm a role play writer. Short little drabbles, ask tons of art. That's probably the best way to catch up to me. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. I don't do the other stuff anymore.
And how about the Calvin?
All right. My website is calvin.cwillia.ms. Calvin.cwillia.ms. You can find me over at riffraff.net. It's riffraf.net. You can find me on Twitter at ccwii. You can find me on Tumblr. It's instacal, instacal.tumblr.com. Am I missing anything else?
Nothing that comes to mind.
Alright, so, yeah, there.
And as for me, you can find me via Twitter at FCWordNinja. If you really want to track me down on my personal account, it's silver_wolf85, but I don't really use it much. The FC Word Ninja one is a lot more utilized. You can find all of our materials and previous episodes of this podcast at fcwriters.com. And if you want to check out our Facebook page, it is facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. And with that, we will wrap up another episode of the Word Ninja podcast. Until next week, all.
Cheers to you all.
I don't think so. I think that was a different failure.
No. Thankfully, no.
Very, very few movies based on video games are any good.
Oh, I enjoyed the Mortal Kombat.
The Mortal Kombat one was good.
The first one.
The first one.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie. But then again, it really was just its own movie, because every Final Fantasy game is pretty much its own story anyway, so there's no way to... Well, I guess I can't say that because they made a Final Fantasy VII movie, didn't they?
Minor detail.
People will hate me for it, but that is an adaptation series that needs to go away. Enough with Final Fantasy VII already. Let's let it go.
See, Calvin, this is why I said at CanadaCon that 7 is the one that killed Final Fantasy.
It wasn't 7, it was all the adaptations based off 7 that killed the Final Fantasy series.
Well, they were talking about sequels, so that kind of fits.
I just
Honestly,
like the Final Fantasy movie because I have never played a Final Fantasy game, so I had no connection to that universe whatsoever. I just thought, ooh, shiny movie.
That's what I thought when I first saw it, too.
Which one? Spirits Within?
Yeah.
Like I said, it has no connection to any Final Fantasy game at all. Zero connection. Just the title, that's it.
Well, that's just silly.
That's the only way to do it. Because if you ever play any one Final Fantasy game, especially the older ones, they do not connect to each other. Completely different universe. And the few exceptions are Final Fantasy X to Final Fantasy X-2, and the Final Fantasy 13, there's 2 of those. Other than that, if you play Final Fantasy VII, then play Final Fantasy VIII, completely different game. Completely different world, completely different rules.
Well, that's not confusing at all. Going back to the list after our... Oop. Oh, we lost Ed.
Yeah, my computer's being done. Give me a second.
Yep. In the meantime, going back to the list after our little derailment. Number 4. Everyone has a reason to live. Which is true. Every character within a story does have their own perspective and reasons for being in there. But I would think it's finding the balance of which ones do you focus on and actually bother caring about. I doubt a reader really needs to know the perspective and opinions of every single individual character in an entire story.
I can't help but develop them as I write, though.
Oh, as a writer, they're useful and sometimes very true. If you're going to bother writing, do it with a purpose. Do people agree or disagree?
I'm still reading it to try and get what he's getting at.
Ah.
I got sidetracked, I'm sorry.
For those of you just listening to the awkward silence as we read, that little one says, even if you're writing a Die Hard ripoff, have something to say about Die Hard ripoffs. The number of movies that are not about what they purport to be about is staggering. It's rare, especially in genres, to find a movie with an idea and not just, this'll lead to many fine set pieces. The Island evolves into a car chase movie, and the moments of joy are when they have clone moments, and you say, what does it feel like to be those guys?
I think I'm going to agree with this one with him because, yeah. You go into like a movie theater or go to read a book and you think it's going to be about one thing and it turns out being about something completely different without any really good plot behind it.
Every fan fiction on the internet.
Well, I was thinking, this may just be me, but this whole thing of this will lead to many fine set pieces, all I can think of is Avatar. Let's just make some really pretty backgrounds with blue cat people in it. We'll make $1 million.
That Avatar. thought you meant the Airbender for a second.
No, the Airbender would actually have a good story to it.
Unless M. Night Shyamalan gets his hands on it.
That doesn't count.
So,
Shyamalan needs to get his hands in nothing. He is one who has forgotten that point. Because when you look at his older stuff, he actually has good structure, and now it's all about creating some stupid plot twist.
the color red.
Yeah, and the color red. Well, The Sixth Sense was good.
Now I'm kind of curious if Shyamalan and Yui Bowl actually did a piece together.
Oh,
Would
God.
two wrongs make a right and actually create a decent movie?
Unfortunately, I don't know who that second one is.
I only know him from the atrociously done Blood Rain adaptation.
I didn't watch that one.
You're not missing anything. Calvin knows
No.
more of the movies.
Let's see. House of the Dead movies.
Never watched
Oh, that they.
Yeah.
them. Never watched them.
House of the Dead is one of my favorite video games.
Again,
Oh,
you're not missing
Is
much.
he one of those ones that tries to make movies out of video games and fails horribly?
Yes.
He gives those he gives them a bad name.
Yes.
He didn't do the Resident Evil ones, did he?
I imagine it was unlikely, but that would have been quite awesome.
Only if they portray it in the right way.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get Doctor Who off my dashboard.
Good luck.
Add more variations to my blacklist.
Okay, with all of that, maybe we should roll into the literary news for the week. I decided to go with some tips, an interesting article, and another interesting article. But the first one is, where is the title of it? Josh Whedon's Top 10 Writing Tips. Because everyone needs tips.
And Josh Whedon.
That too. This one is just a simple little list of 10 quick one-liners and then a paragraph description of why he believes they are true. And the link will be in our show notes and posted everywhere accordingly after the show. But I thought it a very interesting little list. Of course, the first one being finish it. Why should we finish our writing? That would be silly. And the second one being structure. A lot of writers should actually take that one to heart. Myself included sometimes. I don't always remember about structure. Or formatting. Or even grammar sometimes.
Really big was that.
Yeah, it's these crazy things that other writers do.
I should consider doing that.
Yeah, right now, think about all the other crap later.
I think our button says right now, edit later, but same thing.
I thought think about all the other crap later sounded better.
It might be a bit much to fit on a button.
Maybe the 2-inch buttons.
Is that challenge accepted?
I hope not.
Make it fit.
That would require actually investing in the button press for the 2-inch ones. Which, it'll probably happen eventually anyway. And the third tip was have something to say. And the paragraph starts off with this really should be number 1. and it is. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Word Ninja podcast. We are here on August 4th, 2013, for episode 6. The Word Ninja podcast is a 2-hour-long discussion of writing, reading, and general literary news of interest. I am your instigator of literary insanity, Charles Muir, and today we have one Edward Midnight and one William Granville, and just in time, one Calvin Williams. And Calvin is still muted because he has an echo.
I had an echo. I can take care of that. No lost echo.
Hooray. So, how is everyone this Sunday afternoon?
Alive.
Can't complain.
Yeah. That's it.
Hooray for living.
I was enjoying all the buzz all over Twitter and the internet about the naming of the 12th Doctor.
I was on another podcast, so I do not know who it is yet.
The 12th Doctor is Peter Capaldi.
I have no idea who that is.
Not a single fuck was given here.
It'll all depend on how the trade-off goes from Smith to the other guy.
They both show up. One hands the atomic, screwdriver to the other, and thus the torch has been passed.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I was reading a couple of articles about the possibilities of who the 12th Doctor could be. Peter Capaldi was among the shortlist, but there were a couple of people that I was actually that caught my interest, and I would have actually been excited to see if it were at all possible.
Like?
There's a gentleman named Chiwetel Ejiofor. You might, CJ, you might remember him from the Serenity movie. He was the main bad guy.
That would have been interesting.
Quite.
Oh, but he's not ginger.
That would have been interesting too. That would have been quite interesting had that actually played out.
Maybe he'll be the Doctor after the next one.
You never know. Anything is possible. There are a lot of mumblings about the possibility of a female Doctor.
Sometimes even necessary just for the back end, but I don't think it all needs to be conveyed to a reader necessarily.
I don't think that's the point of the comment, though. I think he's saying the point is that the writer needs to have that so he can really make what that character says or does mean something, so that when the reader or viewer gets to it, it's not just, like he says, it's not just a soundbite. It actually progresses the scene.
Good point. I didn't actually read the full paragraph all the way through. And number 5 sounds like trademark Josh Whedon of Cut What You Love. And I would extend that to Cut Who You Love. How many of his characters have gone out in a fizzle of glory?
Sigh.
Is there a series or movie that he has been a part of where there has not been a surprise death of a random character? Because I can't think of one.
It always makes me sad when Steve the Pirate dies in Serenity.
At least he died a leaf on the wind.
He died in a ship crash.
No, he survived the ship crash. He got impaled shortly after the ship crashed.
He got serenitied. Went out the same way as Trinity.
Oh.
People need to stop crashing their airships into piles of rebar.
Well, to be fair, Wash got impaled by a harpoon. I guess the Reavers just wanted to add insult to injury, or injury to insult.
Or just injury.
Yeah.
I think they just really like killing people.
And scrolling down to number 6. Listen. That one can be tricky, depending on who you need to listen to. Of course, I'm stuck with my